I'm thinking about Gary Gygax lately. Not the man, but the game designer, the game rules writer, and whether or not he was good at writing rules.
Gary Gygax, inventor of Dungeons & Dragons.
Greetings! It's a pleasure to meet you.
And obviously there's no doubt about his contributions to the hobby, the creation of it all those years ago, but, was he a good rules writer? And what can we learn about the way he wrote rules and apply it to our own game design principles? Hi, I'm Peter, creator and lead designer of Tales from Elsewhere, and this YouTube channel is all about game design philosophy, examining what others have done to make us better designers. And today's video is about not rules verbosity, like my last video on rules writing, but instead on rules erudition. So let's go through and talk about High Gygaxian.
Anyone want to play Dungeons & Dragons for the next quadrillion years?
Now, for those that don't know, High Gygaxian is the cheeky term that's used to describe the way Gary Gygax wrote a lot of his rules. It turns out Gygax was a pretty smart guy, and that came off in his writing. He had an immense vocabulary and liked to show it off, and I'm here for it as somebody who also appreciates big vocabularies. But the term is also used in a sort of derogatory sense to refer to writing that is so unnecessarily erudite and confusing and requires too many dictionary references to actually be serviceable as a rule. And so let's look at some examples to just immediately communicate what I'm talking about. For example, assassins are evil in alignment, perforce, as the killing of humans and other intelligent life forms for the purpose of profit is basically held to be the antithesis of weal. Now, this little block of text uses the term perforce and antithesis of weal, and that's a little bit erudite for most people's taste. And it's important to note that this block of text came within the explanation on the assassin class and the game mechanics that apply to them, explaining their hit die and weapon proficiencies. So it acts almost as an aside, reflecting philosophically on the nature of assassins midway through some rules text. Now, is that a cool sounding sentence? Yeah. Is it effective rules writing? Maybe not, because it is the designer almost pontificating or reflecting upon a subject midway through explaining rule systems. And it's a theme we actually see in a lot of High Gygaxian that I think we as designers can learn the most from. For example, saying the antithesis of weal may be a bit erudite, but it's pretty cool, or using the term perforce, all of that is fine. But the issue with this is it's structured within the middle of a rules explanation. These sort of asides can be healthy and interesting if they aren't, muddying up the water of the actual operative game mechanics. Having them be afterward or even in a little designer bubble off to the side is a much better place to put them, where they aren't distracting from the player actually finding the rules they need. Because, as you'll see if you watch some of my other videos on verbosity, natural language, or evocative terms, I'm a big fan of strange words and fun vocabulary as a way to teach the reader new terms and immerse them in the fiction of a game. But at the same time, I think there needs to be a limitation when it confuses the reader while reading the rules. And now that we know what to look for, let me read you another example and you let me know if you can feel the High Gygaxian. Yet because the player character is all important, he or she must always, or nearly always, have a chance, no matter how small, a chance of somehow escaping what otherwise would be inevitable destruction. You caught it, didn't you? Where he sort of starts philosophizing midway through an explanation to unpack terms or explore these aspects and concepts, and how that can be distracting from actually getting to the point of the rules block. Because remember, tabletop role-playing games are tools to facilitate gameplay, right? The book itself is a reference document to guide the play at the table. And if you're trying to look something up in the book, like a rules reference, you don't want to get partway through the paragraph where it begins explaining a concept and then have that delayed because the writer has decided to reflect on the nature of assassination and whether or not that means by definition that the person doing the assassination is evil. You want to be able to have a flow that gets them the information they need quickly. So let's say I'm looking through like a first edition rulebook and I need to find out what the Trident of Fish command does. So I start reading, and it says, Trident of Fish command. This is a 3-tined fork atop a stout rod of 6 foot in length, and it appears to be a barbed military fork of some sort. However, its magical properties enable its wielder to cause all fish, including sharks and eels, but excluding mollusks, crustaceans, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and similar sorts of non-Piscine marine creatures within a 6-foot radius to save versus magic. This uses one of the charges of the Trident. Those which fail this throw are completely under the empathic command of the wielder, and then it continues. You see it, don't you? So first note that if you wanted to see what sort of weapon stats the Trident used, you'd have to get to the end of that first sentence piece where it says it's a military fork before you know what to go look up in the equipment section to see its stats. So that's already, one problem with the structure here. And then the real whammy begins. It tells you there's a magical property that applies to all fish, and then it goes on to describe what it qualifies as fish. And then it explains the range of the weapon, and then it goes into what the actual effect is of this fishy command. But it does so in such an odd order. Let me just posit an alternative here. Let's keep all the vocabulary and erudition here and just reorder it. This 3-tined military fork has magical properties that allow the wielder to command fish by expending a charge. Asterisks on fish. When you do, all fish within a 6-foot radius must save versus magic, and those that fail are completely under the empathic control of the wielder. Asterisk subheader italicized. For this weapon's purposes, fish include sharks and eels, but exclude mollusks, crustaceans, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, or any other sort of non-Piscine marine creatures. Do you see how this reordering makes the rules block significantly more clear? It's easier to find the operative information you need because the really important stuff is right at the top. And with that asterisk in the first sentence that guides you to look below where it explains the nature of what is a fish, you haven't actually lost any of the interesting information. You still have the aside that Gygax included in his writing, right, where he is going to philosophize on what it is to be a fish. You haven't lost any of that. And this is why I think the ideas and philosophical concepts that Gygax includes in his writing are not actually bad. The problem with High Gygaxian is actually just ordering. It's sentence structure, it's paragraph structure, it's this sort of colloquial, almost pontification that occurs mid-rule structure, but it's not actually the content itself that's a problem. Because I'm a firm believer that tabletop role-playing games are a chance to learn, to teach the reader new things, new words, or new ways of expressing ourselves, and I think that's the beauty of High Gygaxian. So, for example, check this out from the old Temple of Elemental Evil. There is no doubt you have come to a place of ineffable evil. Still, it is most certainly a place for high adventure and untold treasures. It is time to ready spells, draw weapons, check equipment, and set forth into the maze of peril that awaits you. That is evocative and fun, and I think clear, but still contains sort of the overly long lists that High Gygaxian is known for, but I wouldn't change a thing. I think High Gygaxian at its best is really immersive and evocative and communicates this classic feeling of adventure that more sterile rules writing just doesn't capture. And I think the best place for this sort of High Gygaxian erudition is still in adventure box text, in those lurid and vivid descriptions of dungeons and caves and monsters that we actually still see in modern D&D. For example, here's an excerpt from Out of the Abyss. The ledge is covered with a carpet of moss and fungi, scores of variously sized lumps and pockmarks where pools of vile fluids suppurate and ooze, some drying out and scabbing over. That's just awesome, right? And it's a little erudite, maybe unnecessarily so, but it's also vivid and weird and has the word suppurate in it, which maybe you've never heard before. And hey, Google that and now you've learned a new word. All because the writer of that adventure still understood the magic of these great vivid descriptions that we get in adventures. And that's something we can learn from. where to use High Gygaxian. It's a chance to immerse the reader in something, to show them cool new words that are relevant to the game you're making. The place to not do it is midway explaining very basic game mechanics or explaining class features or anything like that. Keep your High Gygaxian out of rules language and put it into either designer notes, subheaders, and adventure writing. Keep your rules as rules, not a chance to philosophize to the reader. And if you want to learn more about High Gygaxian and rules writing in general, I'll put a link down to Zee Bashew's video on the random harlot table from AD&D, I think it was. It's hilarious. But I'll also put a link down to several of my other videos that go into rules language writing. I did one looking at Magic the Gathering's keywording. I did another that is about evocative terms in general, and another one more recently that is about rules verbosity. All that will be below so you can really dig into this subject more if it interests you. If you want to keep this conversation going, check out the Tales from Elsewhere Discord server. We have a bunch of indie designers in there and talking shop every day, and it was actually a conversation that I was having with some fellow designers that spurred today's video. And if you want to catch more video content and see behind the scenes on this channel, check out the Tales from Elsewhere Patreon. I post Sheriff's Office Hours videos there where I talk about the creation of these videos and give previews and insights into how I'm building my own tabletop role-playing game content. All the proceeds from that Patreon go to the creatives that work on these projects. It goes into, music and artwork and accessories, all the things that go into making tabletop role-playing games. And lastly, if you'd like to see the way I write rules, and from what I've been told, it sounds a lot like the way I talk, check out a link to our Kickstarter that funded last year. We're still accepting late pledges of the PDF tier, and that gives you access to the beta, which is available to all backers. It's the full 380-ish page rulebook in rough draft form, unedited and without any art, and we're actually running regular sessions together in the Tales from Elsewhere Discord server. So you want to come in and play some games with me and other passionate people? Check out all that below. All right, I will see you here next time on Tales from Elsewhere.
Let's try something else. Maybe we should...
Put the dice away before I take them away.